Hello, welcome to the channel. It's your favourite Scotsman here again. In a recent video, we spoke about the first year of retirement and some of the things that you can expect that you might not be thinking about, which, if you missed it, you can watch here to get yourself all caught up. Today, we're going to take this one step further and look at the 3 stages of retirement and what each stage might entail along the way. Retirement is a second career in a sense, and like most jobs, comes in stages. Here's how you can knock it out the park. Ultimately, retirement in your 50s or 60s is likely to be a lot different than when you reach your 70s and 80s, and definitely much different if you reach your 90s. Let's dive right in and look at the 3 stages of retirement. The first stage of retirement is what we like to call the go-go phase, and as the name would suggest, this is the most active retirement phase. You've most likely got time to spare and the energy to spend it properly. It is the early retirement phase when we tend to be physically and mentally capable of living a fairly active lifestyle. In fact, the phase may be not that much different than pre-retirement, except that for most, you're not working and there's way more opportunity to do things like travel and pursue hobbies. For some of you though, the go-go phase or the active phase will include some work. As discussed in our last video, retirees finding employment has been on a steady rise. It may be part-time work or consulting in the same field as your pre-retirement career, or it may mean self-employment. The beauty of retirement is that if circumstances allow, you can pick what's best suited for you. Whatever the case, active retirement is really living the stereotypical retirement dream. For many retirees in this phase, you end up busier than you were prior to retirement. And the old saying that I've heard countless times before, I don't know how I ever found the time to work, rings true for a lot. Quite often at this stage, from an overall planning perspective, we will build in additional spending during these years for travel and hobbies that slowly taper off over time. Certain expenses, such as medical fees, may increase over time, whereas others come back down to earth. A properly designed plan accounts for these shifting weights. Of course, as we touched on in our previous video on what to expect in the first year of retirement, this stage is not all plain sailing. There can be a number of emotions that can be felt and even complete disenchantment with the whole thing. There can be a lot of soul searching, wondering, is this it? You spend your whole life imagining being on the golf course all summer, and then it comes along and surprisingly feels unfulfilling. Most people eventually climb out of that hole, but some never do. And we want to make sure that that is not you. The next phase of retirement is the slow go phase, where the body is telling you to slow down just a little bit. Commonly, this happens between the ages of 70 and 84, when life starts falling into patterns and the excitement of retirement becomes more stable, like settling into a long-term relationship. This stage is sometimes known as the stable or content retirement stage. Generally, you are happier staying home with family coming in to visit. You reach this true contentment phase, satisfied with what you have and relishing being content with the simple pleasures in life. We often see this portrayed in cinema as the happy grandparents who tell the youngsters stories about when they were their age. For once, Hollywood didn't create a cliche, they just depicted something accurately. In this stage, very predictable patterns are common, like the grandkids on Mondays, groceries on Tuesdays, and golf on Fridays. Part of the reason for these patterns is that energy levels are changing, and patterns help minimize effort and thought without compromising on the enjoyment of life. The older you get, the more important it is to find routines and patterns that give you comfort and security. In this phase, for a lot of people, but not all, travel moves from plane rides around the world to shorter trips within the province. An Ontario winery may not have the same prestige as the French vineyards, but for time, effort and price, it's a pretty good stand-in. The thought of sitting for hours on a plane just doesn't appeal anymore, and that's before you get into the high cost of travel insurance. With the Scots being known for being tight with their money, my wife isn't looking forward to the day travel insurance costs get higher. The last stage of retirement is the no-go stage, or the limited retirement stage. In this phase, time and age play a role in slowing down activities and abilities. Sometimes cognitively you decline, sometimes it's physical, and sometimes it can be financial. You know, when you went a wee bit wild in the go-go phase and now you have to wind it back. There are exceptions to this though. I have a client who up until very recently used to be regularly out riding his bike, and he was in his mid-90s. Both he and his wife are remarkable and everything I would personally aspire to be at that age, if I'm lucky enough to achieve it. I'm sure you're wondering what their secret to success is. Well, an afternoon cocktail or two. Quite often though, this stage requires some level of support from family and healthcare workers. Again, this can be physical, emotional or financial support. Choices unfortunately become much more limited. Understanding the 3 stages of retirement is important for planning. In terms of spending, as we touched on before, you probably need more income in the go-go phase of retirement, because that is the time in your retirement when you tend to be spending the most. Statistics show that spending tends to drop the older you get and the further you get into the slow go phase. While the 3rd stage of retirement can be costly due to increases in healthcare, the question becomes, how much does spending drop as a result of decreases in discretionary lifestyle spending? When you hit the no-go, you're not travelling at all. You're also not driving, golfing or shopping the way you used to. You're still spending money, but mostly on the basic necessities to survive. Thanks for joining us today. As always, if you have any comments, please drop them in the section below. If you've enjoyed today's video, do give us a thumbs up, and if you're interested in hearing more from us, go on and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second or two. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.